Hi friends, Prepared Suburbanite here. Welcome back. I'd like to share with you in this video my thoughts on the recent impeachment hearings and the trial that occurred in the U.S. Congress recently. So stick around and I'll share my thoughts. I watched quite a bit of the impeachment hearings in the House, the impeachment trial in the Senate, and I've wondered out loud to not only myself, but to members of my family and friends, what happened to the dictum that you're innocent until proven guilty. I haven't heard that being brought up anywhere in any of the commentary on the mainstream media, on the conservative media, on the liberal media. But what happened to that particular doctrine in our legal system? There was a presumption of guilt all the way through this whole thing. In fact, the impeachment processes in the House started even before the phone call, the infamous phone call, the famous phone call, the perfect phone call, whatever you want to call it, to the Ukraine. The impeachment stuff started well before then. But once that happened, they thought they had the guilty party in their sights, and they treated him as guilty until he was to be proven innocent. But nowhere along the process did anybody ever say what happened to it. I don't recollect Fox News, I don't recollect MSNBC, NBC, CBS, CNN, none of them have come out with that and said, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a fair and impartial trial based on high crimes and misdemeanors committed by the president. In my view, the House did a poor job of trying to put the articles of impeachment together, the research that they did behind it, the witnesses that they called. I don't think they did a real good job, and that's why they ended up with these the two articles of impeachment that really didn't highlight any particular high crime or high misdemeanor either. So the bottom line for me was that the assumption of guilt was always there. And I've heard that said over and over and over again, that he is guilty, high crimes and misdemeanors, obstruction of Congress, abuse of power. He's guilty. And they've never proved it. They've never come up with one scintilla of evidence that really says he's guilty of a high crime and misdemeanor as it's called for in the Constitution. So from my perspective, the whole doctrine of innocent until proven guilty is still there. They did not convict him based on the articles of impeachment because there was no definitive proof that any high crimes or misdemeanors were ever committed by the president. Now, I have heard that, bribery and treason and all kinds of other stuff is out there, and it's all presumed that he's guilty. Well, if he's guilty of those kinds of high crimes and misdemeanors, treason, bribery, extortion, then they should have charged him with it. But they didn't have enough evidence, they didn't have enough proof, so they went with these two articles of impeachment that really didn't rise to the standards that the framers in the Constitution were dealing with. The second thought that I had was watching the Senate proceedings and what was going on in the Senate and the presentations by the managers from the House and from Trump's legal team on the defense, throughout that whole process, never once did anybody question the quality or the objectivity of the jury selection. Now, the jury is the Senate. Every senator except, every member of the Senate except the vice president, who was replaced by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But every single one of those senators basically took a pledge that they would be objective. Now, I've been a juror in trials, and I've been on the prosecution side of trials in civil court anyway. And when we had to deal with a jury selection pool, there would be a bunch of people that would get summoned to appear for jury duty, and we would have an opportunity, as the prosecution and the defense would also have an opportunity to interview, ask a few questions of the prospective jurors in the jury pool. And if they didn't really come across as if they were knowledgeable or were biased in any way, if they did come across as being biased in any way, or if they revealed certain facts that would basically disqualify them as a juror, like they're related to the person being tried, that they work with that person, that maybe that person's their boss, or they are that person's boss in work, that they go to the same church together, that it's something that ties the two people together. Well, how about this? There was a number of senators, Sanders, Klobuchar, Warren, that are running against the president in the Democrat Party, trying to get the nomination to run against Trump in 2020 election this November. How can anybody justify those active senators that are seeking the Democratic primary nomination? How can anybody say that they were objective when the outcome of that particular trial vote could have upset the whole apple cart if they had convicted him? And if every Democrat senator was running, Lord knows what would have happened. But I don't think those votes from those senators that are actively seeking the Democrat nomination for the presidency for the 2020 elections, I don't think their votes should have counted. I think they should have been set aside. They could have watched, but I don't think they should have voted, and they should have recused themselves voluntarily. But nobody brought up the fact that there's a conflict of interest there, and it was glaring. So I'd like to just say thank you to all the Democrats and all the pundits on mainstream media and all the folks that are posting all this nonsense on Facebook and Twitter about how evil the president is, about how many crimes he's committed, how rough and tumble that he is, and how he's ruthless and puts kids in cages and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to thank every single one of them for working on his re-election campaign and making it a success. There's probably a lot more that I could say about the impeachment hearings and about what my thoughts are for the future, but that's it in a nutshell. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on my next video.